Hello, welcome to Introduction to EndNote. This webinar is brought to you by the Levy Library at the Icahn School of Medicine at Mount Sinai. Today we will be going over the steps you'll take to set up your newly installed copy of EndNote version 8, as well as the basics of getting references in, organizing your library, and using Cite While You Write. EndNote is a reference management software. At the very least, reference management softwares are places where you can store references that you've found and create formatted citations. However, reference managers, especially EndNote, do much more than this. Reference managers allow you to organize and share your references, as well as obtain full-text PDFs with just one click. You should end this webinar feeling confident in your ability to navigate EndNote, as well as possess a basic understanding of the way in which EndNote stores your data. You will absolutely be able to get references and PDFs into EndNote from a variety of places, such as PubMed and Google Scholar. Finally, you'll be able to use EndNote's Microsoft Word plugin, Cite While You Write, to quickly insert citations while you're writing. While EndNote for Mac has all of the same functionalities, some icons appear different than they do on PC, and they're located in different places. I will be going through PC today, but I'll show some screenshots to explain the difference between EndNote for Mac and EndNote for PC. Again, they only appear different. All the functionalities are completely the same. Let's get started. When you open EndNote for the first time, you'll see a screen like this, or if you're on a Mac, you'll just see the EndNote bar at the very top. Just hit File, New. This is how you're going to create your new library. EndNote libraries, I like to think of them kind of as Word documents. You have Microsoft Word installed on your computer and you can create multiple Word documents, the same way you can create multiple libraries in EndNote. And that causes some confusion because it's actually best practice to work with just one library. Some people might be tempted to use different libraries for different projects, but EndNote works best when you're using just one library, so later we'll get into how you can use groups to organize your references instead of using more than one library. So, if anyone missed what I did there, File, New. And on a PC, it goes straight to Documents almost all of the time, and that's fine. That's a great place to store your EndNote library. If you wanted to create a separate folder or if you had a different place that you wanted to store it on the computer, that would be fine. But you do want to make sure that you're storing it on the computer itself, not on a network drive and not on any kind of cloud storage. So here's a screenshot of what it looks like when you're saving your library on a Mac. So now back in the PC environment, it's going to save in my Documents library, and I can change the name or I can leave it as my EndNote library. If I'm planning on sharing it with people, it would be a good idea to change the name. And as I can see, it's storing in a .enl format. So save. And my library is created. Here is my lovely empty library. And I'm just going to go into my Documents folder to explain what happened there. So if you take a look at this, it stored Samantha EndNote library, and then it stored another folder called Samantha EndNote library.data. These folders are equally important. They're basically married, and together they make up your EndNote library. If you ever wanted to put this library on a flash drive to move it somewhere, or if you wanted to send it to someone, they need to stay together. You can't open one without the other. Also, if you ever wanted to change the name of the library, they would both need to be changed. And similarly, they need to be kept in the same place. They're in the same location on the computer. Let's talk about getting stuff in to your EndNote library. So here we are in PubMed. So let's say I just run a search and I find an article I'm interested in. So maybe I don't have time to read it today, but I'd like to bring it into my EndNote library to remember it, or maybe I have read it and I want to cite it, but I'd like the full reference in my EndNote library. So right up here, I'm going to hit Send to, Citation Manager, Create File. So this is the first time I'm doing this on this machine, so it is asking me where the file should be opened. This is most likely going to be a one-time thing for this machine. Macs can actually, unfortunately, be a little trickier. It's a little tougher to teach them, but going forward, now that I've gone through this process, PubMed and my browser will know how to open a file of this type. So let's just go back and do that one more time, and then we'll kind of go over what was actually brought in. So if we go back to PubMed, and I'll actually go back to my reference list so I can show you another way to do this. For example, let's say I was interested in bringing in these two references that I've checked off here. I've still got my Send To button, Citation Manager. It's letting me know that I have two selected, Create File, Open with EndNote, and here we go. PubMed is not the only place that you'll want to bring references in from. You may end up on a journal's website or a database, and they all look a little different. Here are a few screenshots of examples, but basically you always want to look for something that says cite this or export, and that will prompt the journal's website or database to create a file that is then able to be imported into your EndNote library and create a reference. So we're going to go through this process again on another platform just to kind of see what it would look like in a different place. So here we are on Science Direct. So I'm going to just run another search or the same search and see what I find. So here I am. I would like to bring this article into my EndNote library. So I look around and I see, oh, there it is, export. So first I see they're actually naming certain reference management softwares, and sometimes you will, specifically Web of Science, you will have databases that do name EndNote, and that's great. You just click EndNote and it will be imported in. Science Direct doesn't name EndNote, but we see export file. RIS is the file type we want to look for, and it even tells us that EndNote will take an RIS file. So we've got RIS, we want the citation and abstract, and we export. And I bring it in. Hopefully the information that I've given you about looking for the words export and cite will help you to kind of get a reference from anywhere into EndNote, but I'm just going to go over one special setting in Google Scholar that can be really, really useful. So here I am in Google Scholar, and if I go up to Settings on the browser that I usually use, I go down here under Bibliography Manager, click Show Links to import citations into. I select EndNote and I hit Save. Now, when I run my search, down here at the bottom, it actually says Import into EndNote at the bottom of every single reference. So let's say I wanted to bring this reference in. Here we go. So now we're going to go over importing files into your EndNote library. And there are a few different file types that you can bring into an EndNote library. It's pretty much always easiest to find a reference on PubMed or on another source, such as Science Direct, Web of Science, and bring the information in that way. But there are situations where you might need to use this functionality. For example, someone downloaded an RIS file themselves from Science Direct and they say, here's a group of citations, put these in your EndNote library. You might find them interesting. Or you have a group of PDFs on your computer that you'd like to bring into your new EndNote library. This is common when people download EndNote for the first time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to demo bringing in some PDFs into my EndNote library. So keep in mind these are full text PDFs that I'm bringing in, not actual references. So we're going to see what EndNote does here. So I hit File, Import, and I'm going to import just one file. I'm going to do one file at a time. So the first thing I want to check is Import Option. I need to select PDF. I find the PDF on my computer. I hit Open, and I bring it in. So Here is my new reference and it has my PDF attached. So what EndNote did here is it was actually able to read the PDF. It probably saw the DOI and it found the information and created the reference for me. So this is our ideal situation. Now we've got everything. We've got our reference and our attached PDF within our EndNote library. But let's see what happens when I bring in an older PDF. So we'll go through the same. Find my PDF. It says PDF, always want to check that, and import. So because this is an older article, it was not able to find the DOI or any kind of embedded metadata within this PDF. So what it basically did was it decided it was a journal article and it created kind of a blank reference with the PDF attached. So what I would have to do in this situation is kind of go through and fill it in myself. Sometimes I cheat and I fill in a little bit of information and then I do find reference updates, which is something we'll go over later. So keep in mind that file import is not just for bringing in PDFs. It might be useful if someone sends you their EndNote library or if you download a file from PubMed or a file from another database on a public computer and you want to bring it into your EndNote. So this file import option can be really useful. Now we'll go over the online search functionalities within EndNote. So to do so, we're going to zero in on these icons right at the top left here. So when you're using your EndNote library, you always want to make sure you're in local library mode. It can sometimes look the same when you're in integrated library mode and you might not realize, and that is because integrated search mode actually has some functionality where you can go out to various databases and search there and bring things into your library. Online mode has the exact same, except you're fully online and citations do not go automatically into your library. So that's a little confusing, so I'm going to demo it for you here. So like I said, when we're in online mode, we are only online. So we're going to search for an article that I have the DOI for. So of course, in my search field, I'm going to find DOI, and I'll put the DOI in here. So maybe this is a situation where I have a PDF and I can see the DOI right on there, or someone told me the DOI, but that's the information that I have. And I'm using this example because we really only recommend using the search functionalities within EndNote when you know exactly what you're looking for. So you have a DOI, you have some PMIDs, or you have a specific author that you're looking for. We don't recommend using this if you're trying to do some real deep searching. You should definitely be going out to PubMed, Web of Science, or Scopus for that kind of searching. So I think I found what I'm looking for. I see all my information on the side here, but it is not in my library yet. So I right click and I say I want to add references to. So this is a situation where I have to add it to a group. I can't just add it to my general library. We will get more into groups later, so you'll kind of understand what happens here. But for now, I'll just say create custom group. Now I'm still in online mode, but if I go back to my local library, it created a new group and it put that reference in there. So we'll get back to naming this group later and kind of what it means for a reference to be in a group, but as you can see, it's also in all references. Now, let's get into the integrated search mode. So like I said, we're combining our library, which we're looking at here, and our online search. So let's say I want to search PubMed again. So I want to search for anything written by Obama B. Now you'll see what it does in this mode is it tells me how many records it found before actually letting me see them. And that's because, as I mentioned earlier, these records are going to go straight into my library without any kind of add to group like the last time. So if I hit OK, It takes a minute, and now I see in my library I have 22 references instead of the 8 that I had earlier. EndNote automatically added all of those articles that it found from integrated search mode. And that's why I'd like to tell people to be very careful with online search mode or integrated online search mode, because it will automatically add everything. Now we're going to go over the final way to bring things into your EndNote library, to bring references into your EndNote library. So this is the manual method, and we like to kind of call this the last resort. There are situations where you might need to use manual entry, but we really hope that they are rare, because most things that we're going to be citing are pretty current. They're available online and we can bring them in. But a kind of common time that we would need to bring something in, or that we would need to use manual entry, is a web page or maybe a very, very old book or article that we really can't find a record for online. Therefore, we don't have an online record to kind of populate our EndNote record. So let's say that I would like to bring in this web page. It's kind of some patient information on sick days for diabetes patients, and I am citing it in my presentation or my paper, so I need to bring it into my EndNote library. So what I'm going to do is hit References up at the top, and this is the same on Mac as well as PCs. I could also hit New Reference here. And the first thing I want to do whenever I am adding a reference manually is make sure I select the correct reference type. So in this situation, it is a web page, but as you can see, there are quite a few options here. And you'll see when I hit web page, a lot of my fields changed automatically. And that's why it's really important to do this first, because that will affect the fields, and you don't want to start filling in fields that don't really apply. So if we take a look at my sick days page, I would just kind of take a look at my page and use this information to start filling in my reference. So I've taken a minute to fill in my information here for my CDC webpage, including the URL. And I would just save that. It's been added to my library, and here I am. Sick days. The website told me it was last updated in 2015. I filled everything out to the best of my ability, and I made sure to put the URL in there so that I'm able to access. Now that we have a few things in our EndNote library, I want to take a minute to kind of discuss what is going on over here on the side. And before I describe what's happening here, I want to just point to this little tab on the bottom, Layout, where we can choose kind of where we're looking at this panel. So we can take a look at it on the bottom or on the right as well. I like to have it on the right and not split. So what we can take a look at when we have one of our references selected is kind of a breakdown of everything that's going on in the reference, and then we can also use this to edit our reference as well. Then we can take a look at a little preview of what the reference would look like, and this preview is based on the citation style that I have selected up here. Now I know you might be thinking, oh my goodness, that is not enough citation styles. I work with quite a few more. Where is JAMA? That can all be found by hitting Select Another Style. And finally, if we have any PDFs attached, so I'll take a look at this one, this is where we would take a look at whatever PDFs we have attached. And then once we open that PDF, we can use that to add some notes, which I've done here, and highlight. And a really fun thing about using the highlighting and note-taking feature is if you download the EndNote app and want to read these on your iPhone or iPad, or even if you share your library with someone, they'll see those highlights as well. So I just wanted to take a minute to point out this section on the side here, as well as our recently added section. So if you take a look, recently added, we've added nothing in the last 24 hours, but if I switch this to last 30 days, oh, still haven't added anything, but it is something that we can toggle. We can also toggle what we're looking at in the top here. So maybe the publisher isn't so important to me. So if I right click up here, I can say, okay, I don't need to know who published each article, but I'd really like to know, how many pages each article is, so I can take a look at that. Now that I've shown you all the great PDF tools that EndNote has, the highlighting and note-taking, you're probably wondering how else you can get PDFs into EndNote besides the way that I showed you earlier. So one of EndNote's best features is called Find Full Text. Invoking Find Full Text prompts EndNote to search the internet for PDFs of your references and bring them into your library automatically. However, EndNote can only import articles that you have access to. Therefore, it's important to let EndNote know that you're affiliated with Levy Library to fully take advantage of this feature. This is a quick task that you'll just need to do once when you're setting up your EndNote subscription, and then you should be good to go. So I'm going to go through how to do that. So first we're going to go out to the Levy Library website and navigate to our EndNote page, hitting Classes and Tutorials, Reference Management, and navigating to EndNote. And of course, we want to hit Viewing Full Text. Right at the top here, I have two links. These are two links that I want to bring into EndNote to let it know that I'm associated with Levy Library. I will copy the first and head back to EndNote. So this is important. Right here, I want to point out Edit Preferences. So Edit Preferences is actually accessed differently on Mac. So here is a quick screenshot of how to access the Preferences screen on the Mac interface. So you would hit EndNote at the top right and find Preferences as opposed to hitting Edit. So for this task, we're going to hit Find Full Text. And as you can see, we have two openings for those links. So I'll hit the first one in there, select the second one, and I should be good to go. So hitting here would automatically invoke Find Full Text on newly imported references. So that means anytime I bring something in from PubMed, it's going to attempt to find the full text. I'm going to leave it unclicked because maybe I don't want a full text PDF of every single article in my EndNote library. But if you would just hit that. So I will hit Apply and OK. So now I'd like to see if I have access to some of my articles through Levy Library. So let's say I select these three. And in order to find full text, I would right click, find full text, and just pretty much I would say once a session, it's going to ask me to log in. And now that I've let it know that I'm associated with Levy Library, down on the side, it's added this little tab, Find Full Text. So it's searching for all three. It did not find one. It found one, and it's still searching for one. And as you can see, the one that it found, or the two that it found, do have this little paper clip here, and I can immediately view this PDF. Now, if you did choose to interlibrary loan that article and it was sent to you, PDF form, of course, and you download it onto your computer, all you would do is come into EndNote, select your reference, select your little paper clip up here, and find it on your computer to bring it in. So that's nice and easy. So pretty much you have like 4 different really great, easy ways to bring PDFs into EndNote, which is another great storage option for your PDFs, as well as a great way to share them once you start sharing your EndNote library. Now we're going to talk about organizing within EndNote. There are some people that use EndNote very effectively and they don't really make use of the groups feature. Everything is in all references and they just pull from there. But using groups is a great way to kind of organize yourself, keep an idea of what you're using for which paper or what references you've gathered on which topic. So we're going to kind of go over a way to make a basic group within EndNote. So as you can see, we started off with a My Groups. So this is kind of the hierarchy here. We have group sets, which this is, and then we have the new group, which was created when I brought something in using the online search earlier. So I can create new group sets and name them different things, or I could continue to just work underneath my groups. So if I wanted to create a new group, there are a few ways to do that, kind of as there is with anything. I could have my groups selected, go up here and do create group, or I could just right click and create a new group right under here. So let's say I want to just click and drag into my new group, which I've called demo, or I'd like to right click and say add references to that specific group. And a great thing that I like about the group sets is that within each group, I can view these references that I've added here, but I can also take a look at the larger group set and see what's in all of them. And then EndNote really likes it when we organize into groups, and they even give us an unfiled. So this is showing me everything in my EndNote library that I have not put into a group yet. Now I've referenced the sharing features in EndNote quite a bit, so now we're going to take a minute to kind of describe how that works. And the sharing features are kind of mitigated through the EndNote website. So it's perfectly acceptable to use your EndNote desktop application and never create an EndNote account. But you do need to create an EndNote web account if you are going to use the sharing features. So we're going to quickly go over how to do that now. So we're going to get to our preferences page, which again is a little different on the EndNote for Mac. Edit preferences on a PC. I'll find sync. And now, because I haven't linked this to an EndNote web account yet, I'm going to go to Enable Sync, sign up, and it's going to actually bring me out to the EndNote website, and I'm going to create my account. So now I went ahead and I didn't actually create a new account. I synced this EndNote subscription here with another EndNote account that I already had. And so that's actually kind of goes back to why it's really important to only use one library, because what happened here is that you can only have one library synced with EndNote Web. So what it did was actually combined the library that I've begun creating here with you with a library that I already have on another computer, which is fine. And we now just have a little bit of a more robust library. So I'm just going to go back into preferences to show you what happened here. So now this account is syncing with the EndNote library that I have created, and it is syncing automatically, which means it should kind of continuously sync as I'm working. But if you know that you're going to go home and try to take a look at that library, or if you know that you want people that you've shared it with to be able to take a look at it, it's probably a good idea to just hit the sync button here. Now we'll discuss the sharing features available within EndNote. EndNote 8 allows you to share your library with up to 100 other EndNote users. In order to share my library with another user, I would simply click this icon up here, Share Library. I can already see a list of the people that I am sharing with. If I wanted to share it with another EndNote user, I would simply enter in their email address, maybe add an optional message, and invite them to view and potentially edit my library. In order to open a library that I have shared with me, or in order to open a library for one of my colleagues to open my library that I've shared with them, simply hit File, Open Shared Library. You'll be given a list of the libraries that are shared with you. You do need to accept the share in an email that comes to you, and that's why the EndNote web account is so important. That's what enables all of these sharing features. And you would just open that library. Now, once I am in a shared library, whether it's my own or someone else's, I can take advantage of this activity feed here. In my case, it is mostly me editing my library, but I can see some other users actually editing my library. So it's a great way to see kind of what other people are doing when you're collaborating. I want to take a minute to discuss some of the functionalities of the EndNote web account, which can be really useful when you want to access your EndNote library from a computer that does not have EndNote on it. And so here I am, and as you can see, my library has fully synced. I'm up at 134 references, so it is pretty quick, the syncing features. And so as you can see, I like to kind of refer to this as a shell of EndNote. You know, it's pretty sparse looking, but you can access full text PDFs that you've attached. You can sort through your groups, and then you can also, under this Collect tab here, use the online search feature and import references using the file types that we discussed earlier. And finally, if you know that you'll be working for a while on a computer that does not have EndNote Desktop installed and you want to use the Cite While You Write feature, which we'll get right into in a moment, you can hit Downloads here and install Cite While You Write on a computer that can link to this online interface of EndNote. So, it's not as robust as the desktop application, but there are definitely some great features. So once we have everything, all of our references in EndNote, we want to know, how do we get things out? How do we actually create these kind of automatically formatted citations? So I'm going to first go over the kind of quick and dirty way. Maybe for example, you just want to create a list of citations to put on a syllabus. You want to just email someone a list of citations. So for example, let's say I would like to cite this article, this one, and this one here. So take a note, I have APA 6th edition selected up here. So for now, we're going to go with that. That's what I'm citing these articles in. That's my style. So I'd give this a right click. I find Copy Formatted. I open my email, or in this case, my Word document, and I paste. And there are my perfectly formatted APA citations. And of course, we always want to trust our reference managers, but any good academic knows we are going to, of course, give these a proofread. So now if I return to EndNote, what if I wanted to cite these articles in a different style? For example, I'm using JAMA. I'm in the medical profession. So I don't see JAMA listed here. So I'm going to hit Select Another Style, and it's going to take me out to EndNote's list of styles. So as you can see, there are hundreds listed here. So you should be able to find what you need, but as always, there are going to be situations where, there may be some obscure journal where you can't actually find their citation style here. In those cases, the journal should be able to give you a file that you can actually import into EndNote and use it that way. So now I have JAMA selected, and now it is in my drop-down menu, and it should stay there. So let's say I want to cite these 3 articles. Now I've got JAMA selected, copy formatted again, and I paste them in. So that's great, and that's a great usage for, again, if we're sending someone a quick email, if we just wrote a short report where we only have a few citations. But if we are writing a longer paper with multiple citations, we really want to use the Cite While You Write feature. So once EndNote is installed on your desktop, you will have this EndNote 8 tab up on your word processor. And so because I have EndNote open, I can simply select my citation style, JAMA, and this can be changed at any time. And I can just begin typing my work. Now it's time to insert a citation. I hit Insert Citation up here. I type kind of just whatever I maybe remember about the article, author's name, title. I find what I'm looking for, and I insert it in. So I get my in-text citation, and EndNote begins building my bibliography for me. And I could just continue on and add another citation. So maybe, for example, I was wrong, or I'm submitting to a different journal than I thought I would have. So I can just quickly go in here and change my citation style. This can be a huge time saver on longer papers. It doesn't look like much with my short sentence here, but if you've got 60 plus references, this is that's hours and hours of work just updating those citations. And so something I want to point out, these citations here, they're not plain text. They're actually code. And so if you notice a mistake or something appearing the wrong way, you really don't want to go in here and just start typing and trying to edit them here. You want to hit Edit and Manage Citations up here, and actually edit from this menu here, because this is kind of tough to describe, but you could actually end up breaking the code, and your Word document could kind of start appearing kind of wonky when you're actually trying to fix it. So I definitely recommend if you think you have a long paper coming up, a big work, to get started with EndNote now so that you're really comfortable using this feature when it's time to get writing. So I want to wrap up by letting you know how important it is to back up your EndNote library. So to back up this library, I'll hit File, Compressed Library. This is going to create one file, not the two files that create the library. It's going to compress them together. I'm going to hit Create with File Attachments, All References in Library. And it's saying it's going to save it to my documents library. I would maybe create a new folder like EndNote Backups and maybe come up with a plan like, okay, the first of every month I'll just do a quick backup and leave those files alone until I actually need them. And I will just back up like Samantha EndNote library and maybe just add a 1 so I know that it's my first backup. And it is creating an EndNote compressed library, a .enlx file. So that's just a great way to make sure that you're not going to lose your EndNote library that you work so hard in. And kind of in the same vein, it's very important to always check for updates. EndNote should let you know when there's an update, but it's a good idea to check, and especially if you feel like you are experiencing some difficulties or features aren't working the same as they used to, you might want to just check if there are updates available. So for that, you would just hit Help and check for update. And if you are using the Cite While You Write feature, the same rule kind of goes for your Microsoft, your Word product. You need to check for updates on there too to make sure that these two programs can work well together. It's important to remember that you can always export this library to another reference manager if you ever wanted to change and use a different program. Your citations are not locked in here. And it's also important to remember that while this webinar did go over most of the key features, you have many resources available to you as a Mount Sinai affiliate. You can always check out the Levy Library LibGuide online. You can always schedule a consultation with one of your Levy librarians. And I also recommend checking out EndNote's YouTube channel. They have a ton of great videos that kind of go into some even more features that we didn't even get to today. And finally, if you're really experiencing an issue, a more technical issue, EndNote's customer service, technical service is a great place to go for help. Okay, hope you enjoyed. And again, please do not hesitate to contact the Levy Library with any questions about EndNote.